Hi, and a good day to all of you. A pleasure and a privilege to be speaking at this forum. Uh, I'm Sanjay. I take care of technology and user experience for MakeMyTrip. And given the composition of the audience, which is largely international, I would be right in assuming that several of you might not be aware of what MakeMyTrip does and the company or the brand. So let me quickly take you through what we do, who we are, and then I'll get into the actual generative AI use cases. Largest online travel super app, online travel aggregators, OTA, one-stop shop for all things travel, as you can see on the screen, the upper part. Everything that has to do anything with travel, we have it on our platform. In the direct to consumer space, we are present as multiple brands. All of them are leaders in their own segments. The first two are uh, one stop shop, the travel super app that we talked about. Redbus and Red Rail are focusing more on ground transportation of bus, rails, and cabs. Trip Money is our fintech initiative. And then outside of the direct to consumer, we are also present uh, for corporate as MyBiz, for travel agents as my partner, and for our affiliate and partners in the sense of open APIs that is powering travel at Amazon, PhonePe, Google Pay, and several Indian banks. Some numbers to corroborate what I just talked about, being India's largest travel super app, 67 million lifetime transacted bookers and 407 million app downloads. In flights, we are on flights, we have 3 out of 10 domestic flyers booking through us. GoMMT actually stands for Go IBU and Make My Trip. Let me build a case for generative AI and why we are so excited about generative AI. I mean, let me set the stage of what really drives us here. We have been one of the very early adopters of generative AI in partnership with Microsoft in India. Uh, Let me give you two things here that as takeaways. One is the context of India, and mostly in the context of languages, and the second one is the context of travel and the nature of travel being more nuanced and more complex. So let me touch upon both of these things. In in terms of language, roughly 15 to 20% of India actually reads, writes, and comprehends English well, which leaves a much larger population that is outside of the realm of English e commerce market space. And that is the space that we want to include now. We are trying to be inclusive of people who are outside in the 80% and bring them into the fold that they can also, having the uh, willingness and the capacity to pay, they can also participate in this travel purchase excitement. The other part that you should also remember is that there are 22 recognized official languages in India, and that is how India is very different from every other country. Every state has more or less a different language, a different dialect, and we have to make it easy for all of these people, especially in tier three and tier four, to come online and transact and buy the favorite travel products. The other aspect is with the context of travel, which is a more complex, more nuanced in the sense we elicit a lot more information from the user before the user can buy the product. Uh, for instance, if you're buying an airline ticket, you have to enter where are you traveling from, on what date, where are you going to, when do you want to return, your names, passengers, the preferences of the passengers, and so on and so forth. So it's in that form you can compare it to a heavy form filling. It's a long list of things that you have to fill out before you can purchase the product. And especially in the context of Indian vernacular languages where the keywords are not very friendly, that long form filling becomes a very painful, frustrating exercise. And that is where we believe that voice comes to the rescue, and voice in combination with GPTs and LLMs, that is a wonderful solution for all of this audience to get them into the fold. Also for people who have accessibility needs, visual impairments, fat finger syndromes, whatever having difficulty navigating a complex app. The voice again comes to the rescue because it makes the application immediately accessible to a larger population. On the Gen AI capabilities, the things that we are using again is analysis, synthesis, and conversations. And let me touch upon a little bit of these in the following slides. These are the use cases that we are covering. Hotels, we are doing analysis mostly of user-generated content, the hotel reviews. We give you a contextual summary of what things you would like to so given your cohort, given your persona. We will give you exactly what you need to see in the summarized hotel reviews. Uh, on the synthesis part, we have SEOs. The templates are coming out again, cohort-based templates that we are driving. Flights and holidays, we are experimenting with conversational flows. I'll take you through one of the flows, which is a flights example in subsequent slides. Uh, there are some things that are supported by large language models, which I'm listing here on the lower bottom left side. Summarization, conversation, and language translation. This is supported by the large language models and the GPTs. And then there are things outside of the GPTs, which is speech to text, text to speech, hybrid user experience. These are things not touched within the GPTs, but the problem when you are offering to a customer, you have to solve the problem end to end. So I'll touch upon a little bit of those also. Let me quickly take you through some of the screenshots of how it looks like. Uh, Touch upon the conversational style here, which is important for flights. Conversational booking, we are using a very guided flow, which is short prompting style. Whereas for a holidays booking, which is more nuanced, and obviously the customer will have a lot more questions and clarifications, it's a more free flowing kind of a conversation with a longer prompt. It has implications on latency otherwise, but we will eventually solve the problem. I mean, not we've been at this game not for too long yet, a few months. This is how the right side of the right screen is what it looks like. We call it Myra. That is our voice chat expert, and we are showing you examples both in English and Hindi. You can press on the mic button and start speaking there, and in your language of choice, English or Hindi, or you can type whatever you want. Typing again is difficult because of the regional keyboards are not being very friendly. And there's a logo. I mean, on again, the right interface, the two boxes that we are showing on the right side, they have a logo which is indicative to the customer that this response is coming through a bot and this is not a human. So just in the interest of transparency, that you know that you're interacting with a bot and the content is coming from a bot. Let me take you through the flights booking experience, which is what is the most interesting part so far. We have it in English and Hindi using voice. A shorter prompting style, as I talked about. It's a guided flow, so we take you through each and every stage of listing all the options and then helping you make a selection and then entering the traveler information. I'll show you all of that. One of the other things that we are doing here is on the payment part, where we have this segment of population in tier 3 and tier 4. Not all of them have credit cards, so we are integrating it very seamlessly with Government of India's unified payment interfaces. It has been on our platform for the longest time, but for the voice interfaces, we are focusing more on that because of the audience that we have in mind. Let me quickly take you through the flows here. You want to book a flight from Delhi to Goa, for instance, and I'll give you all the options. And then there's a conversational flow that you can give your own filters. You can specify the listings. You can tell me what dates exactly, and it brings you to a listing flow. All the options will be listed. Then you make a selection. This is what you have selected. You see the journey details, you see the fee, you enter the traveler details subsequently, which is again in the middle screen here. Confirmation and your contact information, and then you can make the payment on UPI and then move on. So that's the flight funnel flow. Again, I could have done this in voice, it would have been more interesting. But the fact that we wanted you wouldn't be able to, some of you or several of you wouldn't be able to understand the Hindi flow, so I thought I'll restrict myself to just a screen flow here. These are the architectural components that we are using for our packaging of the use cases. From Azure side, AI services, Open AI and speech services, and then we have our own domain APIs of flights, holidays, cabs, hotels, trains, and buses. And this is what we have on the architectural component, several services coming all together to build a more interesting use case. So let me talk about the way forward. We've accomplished quite a bit in a very short duration of a few weeks, maybe a couple of months. Uh, it's been interesting so far. Customers are liking and using the user flows that we built, the combination of services that we are using. There's more work that is needed on the colloquial part. For example, in Hindi, the translations that you are getting out of the standard translator services are very textbookish and very classical. The choice of words is something that tier 3 or tier 4 users from those cities will have to struggle with. So we have to make it a little bit easier. People typically also mix Hindi and English, for instance, in a single sentence, and it's a very, you can't just choose one language and stick to that in a classical way. So it has to be more colloquial, everyday usage of the language, the way it's done in those regions. The accents are different, the dialects are different, the choice of words are different in every, even within Hindi speakers. And that is a problem that we have to solve. We are working with Microsoft definitely to solve these problems, but there's also hope that government, through its crowd-sourced data on voice and regional dialects, that will also come to our rescue. So we are counting on all of these things as we solve it for the larger consumer base that we have. On the user experience, this is a hybrid interaction, as I mentioned, a mix of voice and visual. So sometimes you are talking, sometimes you are making a selection on the screen. So whether you keep the screen facing you or away from you, which is different people will use the screens differently. And a very trivial thing like that, but the solution is not so trivial. So we are working on that as well. I think the user experience is just as hard as the technology in this space, but there's hope. And we are confident that as we move forward, as we are aware of more and more issues, we will come to solve all of those, working jointly again to solve all of these problems to bring the best solution forward for our customers. That's all I have. Thank you.